everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. In this video, I'm sure you already know because this is big news. There was a massive earthquake in Turkey and it affected Syria as well. And right now, at the time of this recording, they're saying that it's over 2,300 deaths, but it seems like it's expected to rise. And so what I want to do is look at this in context, look at the numbers. Um, if you've been with the channel for a while, there was a time when I was doing a separate channel called Watch for the Signs, and I had put together a tracker for that channel, and I decided to pull one of those trackers over to my current workbook that I use for this channel. So we're going to look at that to kind of like really understand what happened in context of earthquake history. So first, and by the way, many of you have told me about this, so I can't give credit to any one person. There were many of you that this was on your radar. Okay, so going over to the USGS Earthquake Map, you can see a lot's going on right here. Uh, you see all these basically aftershocks, really. But you had the main, excuse me, you had the main earthquake, and then a really powerful aftershock, and then you have all these other aftershocks, and you compare that to the rest of the world right now. This is what the rest of the world looks like. But something major has happened in Turkey, right here, close to the Syrian border. Okay, so CNN, more than 2,300 dead as powerful quake hits southern Turkey and Syria. Let's go ahead and zoom in, find out what we can about this. More than 2,300 people have died, and rescuers are racing to pull survivors from beneath the rubble after a devastating earthquake ripped through Turkey and Syria, leaving destruction and debris on each side of the border. One of the strongest earthquakes to hit the region in a century shook residents from their beds at around 4 a.m. Monday, sending tremors as far away as Lebanon and Israel. Much of northwestern Syria, which borders Turkey, is controlled by anti-government forces amid a bloody civil war that began in 2011. And we've talked about that. It's on the timeline. This is basically associated with the Arab Spring. If you'll remember that, there was a rash of just riots, revolutions, things that happened in the Middle East, and Syria is still grappling with that. Here's a picture, a map of the affected area. Okay. A series of aftershocks have reverberated throughout the day. The largest, a major quake that measured 7.5 in magnitude, hit in Turkey about 9 hours after the initial quake, according to the USGS. Excuse me. So, yeah, because this was, let's sort this by magnitude. This was the one right here. This was the main quake, 7.8. 7.8. I guess before we continue, this caught my eye right away as soon as I saw 7.8, because I'd already done a video earlier this year because we had a 7.6. And that caught my eye because last year, let's go to let's go to the Second Coming timeline really quick. Okay, so I don't think I put, oh yeah, I did. Okay. So starting off this year, we had a 7.6 earthquake in Indonesia. And that tied for the largest earthquake, the largest two earthquakes in 2022. In 2022, there were two earthquakes that tied for first place. One was in Mexico, 7.6, and then one was in Papua New Guinea, 7.6. The interesting thing about the Papua New Guinea one is that it happened one day after President Nelson's birthday. You had like this weird little series of events 3 days in a row. You had Queen Elizabeth that passed away, longest reigning British monarch. Next day, President Nelson becomes the oldest prophet and apostle of this dispensation, if you're counting by years, not by months and days and stuff, like just by years. And then the day after his birthday, you had the largest earthquake of the year for 2022. And then you had a twin earthquake, not an earthquake, earthquake that happened on 9 days later on September 19th. And that happened to be the 23rd of Elul, which on the Hebrew calendar, that's when they commemorate 9/11, right? So it was weird having twin earthquakes. One of them happened on the Hebrew calendars, 9/11. It was just weird stuff, weird. And then we start off this year, 2023, with a 7.6 in Indonesia. And now, I haven't put it on the timeline yet. I should have done that before I did the video, but now we have a 7.8. So this year, uh, it's really getting off to a really interesting start, I think. It really kind of started with this California flooding that's caused billions of dollars in damage. We had the 7.6 earthquake 9 days into the year. We had this Chinese balloon. That's a big story right now. There was a fox seen on the Temple Mount, and in Judaism, according to the Talmud, that's a sign of things to come. Just a lot of really interesting things. So anyway, that's why this caught my eye, and we're gonna look at more. Don't worry. Okay, so a video from the scene in Turkey showed day breaking over rows of collapsed buildings, some with apartments exposed to the elements as people huddled in the freezing cold beside them, waiting for help. Yeah, that is a really rude awakening, literally speaking. I would be quite upset. A host of countries have sent rescue workers to help the stricken region, where a colossal effort to find and free trapped civilians is underway. A cold and wet weather system is moving through the region, further hampering that challenge. Oh my goodness. Monday's quake is believed to be the strongest to hit Turkey since 1939, when an earthquake of the same magnitude killed 30,000 people, according to the USGS. Earthquakes of this magnitude are rare, with fewer than 5 occurring each year on average, anywhere in the world. 7 quakes with magnitude 7.0 or greater have struck Turkey in the past 25 years, but Monday's is the most powerful. Well, this would be a good time to look at uh, the numbers. So I added a tab here. I copied it over from my previous workbook for the other channel. It's under a tab called Earthquakes. If you click on this button down here, it brings up all the tabs. It's toward the top. It's the second one, Earthquakes. Okay, so I had plotted. This is all information that I got from Wikipedia. Like I said, Wikipedia does a really good job as far as these like different lists of things, and they have lists of earthquakes. The information could be off a little bit, but I think it's good enough for our purposes. We just need to see relatively what's going on, and so I put it all here, and I'm looking at a few different things. So first, let's look at column I. It's this column right here, where it said that earthquakes that are 7.0 or above are relatively rare. So what's interesting, and this caught my eye once I did this today. Look how many 7.0 earthquakes between 7.0 and 7.9 we've already had this year. Today is February 6th. And compare this to the rest of column I. We've already had 5. 5. 5. And in 2017, there were a total of 6. So this year, with only a little over a month having gone by, we already have 5 compared to all of 6 from 2017. Last year, there were 11. So we already have about half as much as last year. And that's not to say that, I mean, if you want earthquake predictions, go watch Dutchson's. He's the earthquake master. But I don't know if this translates into, wow, we're going to have a like a big year as far as 7.0 and above earthquakes go. But I'm kind of shocked to see that we're already at 5. And we shouldn't assume that it's going to be like a constant rate. But if I were to make a prediction, I would assume that, yeah, this will probably be a bigger year as far as 7.0s go. But I don't know. I'm not an expert on these things. So this goes back down to 1985. And then before that, Wikipedia doesn't really have the same type of lists set up. They do, but it's not like in the same format. It'd be too much work for me to compile it all. So I'm just going back to 1985. So yeah, already 5 for the year, which I think is pretty amazing. And then you can see I have these other categories, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we haven't had a 9.0 or above since 2011. That's when we had the Japanese tsunami, right? The powerful earthquake that caused a tsunami that was really dramatic. Um, 2 years ago, in 2021, there were 3 8.0 to 8.9, which is quite a lot, relatively speaking. The only other year going back to 1985 that tops that was 2007 with 4. So, okay, and then other things to look at here. So, okay, so in column B, I have a total of all earthquakes that are 6.0 or above. So in recent memory, uh, probably the worst year for earthquakes, 6.0 or 6.0 or above. Or, you can look at this next column. There's also 5.0. So 2021 was a relatively heavy year for earthquakes, but then 2022 kind of quieted back down. Um, and then back in 2011, when you had the Japanese earthquake, there was a lot of other seismic activity going on. That was a really heavy year. You can see here, um, 225 total 6.0 or above, which I think it's actually, yeah, from 1985 until now, that was the worst year. Excuse me, that was the worst year for earthquakes, for number of earthquakes. But the other thing that we'd want to look at is death toll, because ultimately that's what really matters. I don't have a way to really easily total like damage and stuff like that, because that would be another thing to look at is damage. So the only thing I can really do is look at the death toll. So what I have here in column D is total death toll. And this is not a completely accurate number, because Wikipedia only lists earthquakes. So like when you go to their thing here, for example, here's 2023. Um, they put together these tables, and they have the death toll, right? But to get on this table, it has to be an earthquake that has at least 10 dead. All right. So it doesn't have I don't have a perfect number of all deaths, but so we're just looking at earthquakes that are 10 or above. So um compare this year, 2023, to 2020 or 2019. It's already far exceeded it by far. Last year, and then in column E, I have deadliest earthquakes, like deadliest single earthquakes. So column D is the total between all earthquakes, and then column E is the deadliest earthquake of that year. And last year, the deadliest earthquake was 1,163, and that was in Afghanistan. And I think I did a video about that, but if we go to 2022's page right here, that earthquake was in Khost, Afghanistan, right? And that was a 6.0. Of course, the magnitude does not necessarily translate to death toll, because there's a lot of different things to take into consideration, including depth, and then population density, and building codes and infrastructure and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that come into play as far as death toll is concerned. But yeah, just a 6.0, and that was the deadliest earthquake of last year at 1,163. Okay, so looking at death toll, there are many other years that just blow these recent years away. Uh, look at 2010 with a total of 164,000. 2004 was just gigantic with 2,000 or 228,000. Those were the two deadliest years, and this would include not only deaths by earthquake alone, but also by tsunami. So, again, it's not quite perfect, but um, and then you can see, the years before that, you have some pretty heavy years, 10,000, 26, 51,000, 22,000, 29. And so, if anything, recent years have been lower compared to the years before 2011, roughly. Okay, it's actually been lower. So make of that what you will, but so there's a lot of different ways to look at this. And then column F, I have the total number of deadly earthquakes defined as earthquakes that have killed 10 or more. So far this year we've only had one. Last year there were 9. And it seems like the average is probably about, I don't know, 7 or 8 or something like that. In the 80s and 90s, it was kind of lower. And then from 95 until maybe 2002, it was kind of high. That was probably like the heaviest period right here, 95 to 2002. And again, this is not death toll, just simply the raw tally of earthquakes that would be considered deadly as defined by 10 deaths or more. So, and then there's been, I guess, kind of a little bit of an uptick since 2018, which is interesting because that's when President Nelson became prophet. Okay. I'd say that there's been maybe a little bit of an uptick. Well, definitely for 2018 because I had 11. And the only other years that had 11 or more was 1999 and 1995. So the year that President Nelson became prophet, it tied for second place in terms of number of deadly earthquakes. So, maybe that's saying something. Uh, so there's a few surprising things here, and we'll just have to kind of see what happens going forward. But with from my point of view, as a layman, it doesn't look like we're starting off the year very good when it comes to earthquakes, with already 5 between 7.0 and 7.9. All right, let's continue with the article. Okay, Carl Ling, an assistant professor at Georgia Tech University School of Earth and Atmospheric Sciences, told CNN the area hit by the quake Monday is prone to seismic activity. Quote, it's a very large fault zone, but this is a larger earthquake than they've experienced in any time in recent memory, Ling said. Okay. My gosh. That's just insane. Okay. This is CNN meteorologist Karen McGinnis. Hundreds of thousands of people are impacted by this. It's cold, it's rainy, roads could be impacted. That means your food, your livelihood, the care for your children, the care for your family. Anything as far as crops or anything growing across this region will be impacted as well. The ramifications of this are broad and will impact this region for weeks and months. This is just like a terrible. You have a civil war going on, right? And by the way, you had involved in that civil war. You had not just what's the guy's name? Assad, yeah, anti-Assad forces, but you like them against the government. But you also had ISIS there for a while, and I think they're still kind of there, but they're severely diminished in their capabilities, in their land and everything. But you have that going on, and then you have this, and it happens at a time when it's cold and it's rainy, and then on top of that, it's going to impact food in agriculture. Oh my gosh, please say prayers for them. Meanwhile, more than 4 million people rely on humanitarian assistance in the region of northwest Syria where the deadly earthquake struck, according to the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA. The majority of these people are women and children. Along with the devastation from the earthquake, Syrian communities are battling an ongoing cholera outbreak. amid a harsh winter with heavy rain and snow over the weekend, OCHA said in a statement. So, okay, yeah, so you have cholera going around too. Okay, let's go on to this one. This is abc.net.au. Magnitude 7.9 earthquake levels buildings in Turkey and Syria, killing over 2,300. I pulled this up because I was wondering if they expected the death toll to continue to rise. And according to this, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said the death toll in his country has risen to nearly 1,500, while over 8,500 people were injured, with both figures still expected to rise. Now, remember, this is just Turkey talking, so this isn't including Syria, so that's why it's 1,500 here. But yeah, he's expecting for the death toll to rise. Another earthquake measuring magnitude 7.7 struck central Turkey following the initial quake, with the Syrian capital of Damascus also hit. That's interesting because I saw elsewhere I think they were saying that this aftershock was 7.6 or 7.5, but according to this article, they're saying that it was 7.7. So, okay, let me see if there was anything else that I highlighted from this one. No. Okay. Okay, Turkey earthquake. Where did it hit and why was it so deadly? This is BBC. Yeah, see on the BBC they have it at 7.5 right here, the aftershock, and then the initial one 7.8. So who the heck knows? For me, it doesn't really matter too much. What matters is, what actually happened, the impact. Professor Joanna Farr Walker, head of the for Risk and Disaster Reduction at University College London, said, quote, of the deadliest earthquakes in any given year, only 2 in the last 10 years have been of equivalent magnitude, and 4 in the previous 10 years. Let's take a look at that. So, I'm not sure if that's okay. Of the deadliest earthquakes in any given year, only 2 in the last 10 years have been of equivalent magnitude, and 4 in the previous years. Well, if you're saying equivalent, that's 2023 back to 2013. So you had these two, this one this year, and then the one in 2021 that were roughly equivalent because they were both about the same. But you had 2 other ones, one in 2018 that was about twice the amount of death, and then in 2015 4 times. So I don't know. Who cares? Whatever. Um, yeah, only 2 in the last 2. Maybe she's referring to the Afghanistan and the one in 2021 as being equivalent. I don't know. The incident occurred in the early hours of the morning when people were inside and sleeping, so that would be one factor. The sturdiness of the buildings is also a factor. Excuse me. This was a region where there had not been a major earthquake for more than 200 years or any warning signs, so the level of preparedness would be less for a region which was more used to dealing with tremors. And here's what looks like relatively new buildings. They look like they're in good condition and relatively new. There's that, and then here's what happened after the quake. They're just totaled, basically. Okay, what caused the earthquake? In this case, it was the Arabian plate moving northwards and grinding against the Anatolian plate. Okay, Anatolian fault right here. Here's the Arabian plate. So, all right. On the 13th of August, 1822, it caused an earthquake registering 7.4 in magnitude, significantly less than the 7.8 magnitude recorded on Monday. Even so, the 19th century earthquake resulted in immense damage to towns in the area, with 7,000 deaths recorded in the city of Aleppo alone. Damaging aftershocks continued for nearly a year. There have already been several aftershocks following the current earthquake, and scientists are expecting it follow the same trend as the previous big one in the region. So, if I'm understanding that correctly, they're expecting aftershocks to continue for a year. Is that how you guys understand that? It says damaging aftershocks continued for nearly a year. So if that's the case, that's not good. And it's been more than just just several aftershocks. Like, look at this. Look at this right here. Let me update this. God, jeez, Louise. All right. Um. Okay. What else? Is there anything else? How did this compare with other large earthquakes? The earthquake off the coast of Japan in 2011 was registered as magnitude 9 and caused widespread damage on the land and caused a series of giant tidal waves, one of which led to a major accident at a nuclear power plant along the coast. The largest ever earthquake was 9.5 recorded in Chile in 1960. And again, uh, like I said, you can see the death tolls back then from like 2011 and before were a lot bigger than they've been recently. Um, and you have to, sorry, you have to wonder when the next 9.0 or above is going to happen. So if we're looking at this column right here, column G, here's the one that it was just talking about in 1960. That was the largest one. There's one 8 years before that. And then there was another one 4 years afterward. And then there goes like a big space of time. And then we had one in 2004. And that, I think, was the one that caused the Indonesia tsunami that caused all this death right here, 228,000. And then the Japanese one, right? So I don't know how long it's going to be before we have another one. Of course, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we're expecting a big one to happen at the Second Coming, which is probably going to be completely off the scales from the way it's described. And then 8.0 to 8.9, I would assume that there probably would be one this year. I would guess that there would be. Why? Well, it's because when we look at this, you don't really have any gaps there that are more than 2 years. You have to go all the way back to 1993, and then there's a 4-year gap, and then there's a 2-year gap in 1987 and 88. But that seems to be like the exception to the rule, because every year from 1995 until now, there's not been more than just a 1-year gap for 8.0. So we had a gap last year. There was no 8.0. So that's why I think I would expect there'd probably be one, at least one this year. This one almost was one. It was 7.8, but we'll just have to wait and see. Okay. And okay, it looks like that's it. That is it. So just you know, I don't know. Tell me your feelings about this year. Do you feel like it's getting off to a pretty rocky start? I do. I definitely do. Again, just as a recap, 7.6 earthquake in Indonesia, the earthquake that we're talking about right now, California floods, Ukraine war is still ongoing, Syrian civil war is still ongoing, the pandemic is technically still going. We've had all these like deaths of these people, the oldest of their type, coming from significant places of power and influence. We have this Chinese balloon business going on. I think that this year is starting off a little bit more interesting than last year, because last year it kind of took a while for things to get going. We had the Hunga Tonga Hunga Hapai volcano that went off, which was the largest explosion ever recorded by modern instruments on Earth. But then just not really a whole lot happened. There was that, and then a month later, the Ukraine war began. And I don't know. April, the largest wildfire in New Mexico state history. So I'm probably missing a bunch of things too, so I don't know. All right, well, that's going to be it for this one. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also, make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.